Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Kirksey. I am the Senior Director of Educational Travel at the National WWII Museum, and I am so excited to have you join us and watch and learn in this webinar with two of the most brilliant historians, dear friends to the museum, Michael Neiberg and John McManus, who are both joining us on our May of 2027 Courage on the Coast, a cruise from Bordeaux, France, up into Amsterdam. It's a new itinerary, but of course, being in Normandy over the 83rd anniversary of the D-Day landings. And we just can't wait to share this wonderful itinerary and talk about what we're going to be doing. So hi, Mike. Hey, John. Thanks for joining me. And I'm
Pleasure,
so
Sarah.
excited to have both of you on this cruise. So for those that have traveled with us before, you definitely recognize both Mike and John. They are regular travel historians for us. And in fact, next week, all three of us will be meeting in Paris for our Seine River cruise. We also get together often on other programs or here at the National WWII Museum for the International Conference. And it's no secret that both of you are just favorites with both our conference attendees and our travelers. But what's so cool about this itinerary, though, is that although Mike and John will be joining us for the majority of this cruise, along the way, at each port, you're going to be meeting new and other historians. Some I think you'll definitely recognize by name or by book. But in this community of ours, it's always so much fun to all get together. Now, before though, we kind of get into each port, I also want to share about the excursion. You know, something that we're offering different about this cruise is that there'll be half day and full day excursions. So for those that are maybe wanting a little bit of a rest or wanting to enjoy their luxury cruise accommodations, you can go back a little bit early and have your free time on that cruise. We'll have cultural options, some of the most beautiful places all along France, places like Mont Saint Michel, but then, of course, the historical content, covering World War II from Bordeaux all the way into Amsterdam. All right, so I've talked enough already. So let's start with, actually, before we even get to Bordeaux, let's talk about the pre-tour. Mike, you'll be leading this. It's about the French resistance in Limoges. Let's talk a little bit about Limoges and, of course, that horrific site, Ordour-Sarglan.
Yeah, first of all, just thanks, Sarah, for letting me be a part of this. And John, as always, looking forward to traveling with you and seeing you in France next week and doing this tour with you.
Absolutely.
The key thing to know about Limoges, Limoges is in the unoccupied zone, the Vichy French zone, which means that during the war, there was a little less pressure from the Germans in that zone. And what develops here is something called the maquis, Maquis, which in French means a kind of scrubland or dense vegetation. And it's the term that will be associated with the rural and small town French resistance as opposed to the big city resistance in France. And not to get into too much detail, but it will really begin to kick off in 1943 when the Germans and the Vichy French try to introduce something called the STO, which is a labor scheme that will take young men and send them back to France. So these maquis cells build up so that these men don't have to go to Germany to work in German industries, which are, of course, being bombed by Allied bombers. And then over time, they'll develop into a serious fighting force that will get support from both the British Special Operations Executive and from some American units known as the Jedburghs and the OSS that will try to assist them as well. So they're very, very important cells and a very different look at the French resistance than the one that you might get if you go to Lyon or if you go to Paris.
And what about what happened right outside of Limoges, just a couple of days after D-Day?
Yeah.
Ordour. Talk about that for a second, either one of you.
Yeah, John, if you don't mind, I'll just because it's so close to Limoges and so much a part of Limoges. It's one of the most horrific events that happens in France, and one of these, the French call them lieu de mémoire, site of memory for France. On June 10th, 1944, because there was so much resistance activity in this region, and because the 2nd Panzer SS Division, the Das Reich Division, was there, a particularly brutal division, they committed one of France's most terrible war atrocities. They killed 624 Frenchmen in this town, Frenchmen and women in this town, often in just horrific manners, locking a church door and setting it on fire. Really, really terrible. And what we're going to do when we go to see this place, the French did something really interesting and really fascinating. They just chose not to rebuild the town. So it appears just the way that it did after this atrocity, and we'll get a chance to go through and we'll get a chance to see it. And like I said, it's one of these places for the French that is this kind of national site of memory for France. And so it's very, very important to their memory and to the way that they think about the war. And it's very closely connected to this Maquis resistance cell that gets built up in Limoges.
And to add a little bit of operational context to it as well, so Das Reich is trying to move towards Normandy to deal with the landings there, which is the pattern you see, of course, with a lot of the rest of the German armed forces desperately trying to converge on the beachhead. And the resistance that Mike had mentioned is one of the things that has brought these guys to a point of frustration, and then eventually, leads to these atrocities that are, beyond the pale, and a really haunting place to visit. Another kind of popular sort of popular media tie-in. If you've ever seen Saving Private Ryan, the later parts of the movie where they're fighting in the fictional town of Rommel, the German unit portrayed there is supposed to be from Das Reich. So now that's just, of course, a movie, but it's also just kind of a base point that this unit ends up fighting in Normandy in the kind of normal tactical context too. But they've done these terrible atrocities on the way.
John, as many times as I've seen Saving Private Ryan, I did not know that. And that's a good little tidbit. Next time I watch that, I'll check that out. But Mike, one thing also about the pre-tour, although we are covering a very heavy topic about this atrocity, you fly into Paris and then you're going to drive down to Limoges. And on the way to Limoges, we are going to stop at Chateau Chambord, which is absolutely gorgeous. And actually, at one point, it did host the Mona Lisa when it was being moved out of the Louvre for safekeeping. So while we're there, we'll be able to see their World War II gallery and learn about all of the stolen art that was moved from Paris to this chateau for safekeeping. But then, of course, when we leave Limoges and we're heading to Bordeaux, we're going to stop in Cognac. And Mike, you were the one that actually encouraged me to add that as the stop on the way to Bordeaux. And who doesn't want to go to Cognac, Everybody might need a little bit of Cognac after some of that content. But so now we'll get into the actual cruise. So we embark in Bordeaux. Bordeaux, I would venture to say most people will know because of wine. But what we're going to be doing is wine and war. So Mike, why don't you talk a little bit about the significance of Bordeaux? And, of course, you, John, pop in. And anything you want to add about this beautiful city where we're embarking.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot to see and a lot to talk about. Bordeaux, unlike Limoges, was in the German occupation zone. It was fully occupied by the Germans. But before the war ended, it's where the French government went from Paris to Bordeaux and made the fateful decision that it would not continue fighting and it would not try to get to North Africa. So there's a lot of things that are going on here. There's also a Portuguese diplomat, Aristide de Sousa Mendes, who signed a bunch of transit visas to allow many people that otherwise would certainly have fallen to the Nazi death machine, that allowed them to get over the border first into Spain, transit visas to let them get to Portugal. So there's both heroism and there's horror that happens here. This is where one of the big U-boat bases is built. The remains are still there. You can still see them because they were built so well, it's almost impossible to destroy them. Oddly, this is a base that has both German and Italian submarines, which is not something that you see very often. And it does have a French resistance history as well. I don't know if we'll get to go there, Sarah. Maybe we don't know yet. Maybe you do know. There is a thing called the Centre Jean Moulin, which Jean Moulin is one of the great, great heroes of the French resistance. And there is a site named for him. And once we get there, I'll be happy to talk about Jean Moulin until Sarah shuts me up, because he is genuinely one of the true heroes of the Second World War, and a name that I fear not that many Americans know, but someone for whom there is a street and a square and a school, or all three, in every little village named for him in France. So hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about him when we're there.
And as of right now, it is on the itinerary. It's one of our
Outstanding.
half-day options to talk about the Jewish experience in Bordeaux, but it bringing in, again, that French resistance and Jean Moulin. John, anything you want to add to Bordeaux, or you want to start talking about the next port, which is Lorient?
Yeah, I think I'll just dive into the next part of it, which, as we get further up the coast, now you begin to get a little bit more into the operational side of the war too. I mean, obviously Lorient is a major submarine base too, very very similar to Bordeaux in the sense of having submarine pens that are almost impossible to destroy. And believe you me, the Allies attempted to, because obviously the Battle of the Atlantic is the entire lifeline of the war. Lorient is besieged in the summer of 1944. It is not necessarily directly attacked by Allied forces as some of the other places we're visit have been. But I wanted to mention something about again, kind of the larger context of this. These Brittany ports that have been such important submarine bases could also, once the Allies have invaded, become very important sustainment and supply and logistical bases once ashore, because obviously, it's one thing to land, it's another to be able to supply and sustain an army. And these are mass armies that are going to be ashore as of the summer 1944. And that is an enormous challenge that Eisenhower's headquarters have been wrestling with for months leading up to D-Day. So the thinking was that you simply have to have as many of these ports as possible in order to sustain the Allied armies as they advance toward Paris and eventually towards Germany. Lorient potentially being one of them, but it is just simply too tough of a nut to crack, and it is mostly besieged more or less to the end of the war. A couple of the other places we'll visit, of course, Brest and Saint-Malo, end up in a different category. These are directly assaulted by the Americans and also by the French. The French resistance is a key part of this too, certainly in terms of intel networks, and obviously harassing the Germans, all the things that they're quite famous for. But now they're going to sort of marry up with these conventional American armies. So once you see the later phase of the Battle of Normandy, the thinking for General Bradley, who, of course, is the first Army commander, and he's about to become an Army Group commander. In other words, the #1 American ground commander in France. He's decided he simply has to have these ports in Brittany, of which Brest is really kind of sort of the lodestone. It's a major harbor, and I think it's kind of interesting. One of the things I noticed on the itinerary is going there to look at some of the World War I sites, because in World War I, Brest was such an incredibly important debarkation port for American military personnel. So here we are in World War II, wanting that city and port back. And this is a corps level operation. So General Troy Middleton's 8th Corps has 3 U.S. divisions that are part of it: the 2nd, the 8th, and the 29th. The 29th, of course, is very famous for assaulting Omaha Beach on D-Day. Here they are now at Brest, and also there's U.S. Army Rangers. So the Germans, and this is a pattern you're going to see certainly here in Brittany and also in Cherbourg and Normandy, hunker down and just fight the most that they possibly can, and try and deny the port to the Americans. And the Americans that summer, from August into September, basically fight about a 5-6 week campaign to try and take Brest. So there's many places we can visit. It's basically an arena of urban combat. It's an incredibly frustrating place where we suffered 10,000 casualties. This will be controversial because there's others in the U.S. command structure who think we need to be just heading east and forgetting about going and grabbing these harbors in Brest, like Brest and Saint-Malo and other places in Brittany, because they're going in the wrong direction, and the Germans eventually destroy the port facilities anyway. So it's really, really kind of a frustrating campaign, which is one of the reasons why we tend to forget it. But it's born of that controversy. You have a famous moment, of course, in the Battle of Brest, in which you bring up British, what are called crocodile tanks. These are flame tanks that come in that are needed against the fortifications. There's a fort called Montbarry. There's all these sort of unique places. But the capstone surrender by the German commander, famously, he asked for Brigadier General Canham, who's the second in command of the 8th Division. He asked for his credentials, and Canham, points to the soldiers around him and said, "These are my credentials. Surrender, dude." I mean, that kind of thing. Canham, by the way, is such a fascinating character. He was commander of Hunt's 16th Infantry Regiment, which assaults Omaha Beach. So he's really been around the block by then. So as you can see, I get pretty about this stuff. I'll try not to go on too long, but just a little highlight for you too. And Mike shut me up too. Saint-Malo. It's a smaller port, beautiful place, of
Can I
course.
just say one thing, John, before you
and
do?
again,
So that incident of "these are my credentials" is so important to the U.S. Army that we had a painting of that in my office building before we switched buildings. I don't know where the original went, probably to the Indiana Jones warehouse, or top men are looking after it. But we had that, and it was put right outside the dean's office. So again, that moment is
wow.
incredibly important to U.S. Army history. So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but want to
Yeah,
make sure we got that in.
no, that's a great point, Mike. Yeah, and Canham is a legend, isn't he? I mean,
He's a
he's
legend.
remembered at the Army War College, just like you and I remember him. And yeah, he was a
Yeah,
really colorful character, and
yeah,
so I think that was
yeah.
so him on so many levels, you know. But yeah, really interesting. So yeah, it's at Saint-Malo. You end up with the 83rd Infantry Division fighting a kind of divisional fight there against a smaller German garrison. The town had been pretty heavily bombed. Again, what do we want? We want the harbor facilities, and again, we're kind of frustrated in that object. The commander there is a guy named Macon, and he had been in combat since the Mediterranean, since the invasion of North Africa as a regimental commander. But the 83rd had fought very hard in Normandy as well. All these units had. So they were new, you know, they were not new to combat, but they're kind of new to the sort of urban fighting that you're going to have. And we'll be visiting these spots where Americans basically fought and died street to street, you know, to take these places. Again, a kind of a popular reference point, if you've ever read a novel or seen a miniseries called All the Light We Cannot See, it's set in Saint-Malo. So they did just give you a little base point there.
Well, and
And
just to
it'll
go
give
back,
you a.
oh, go ahead,
Sorry,
Mike.
sorry. I was going to say Saint-Malo will give you a very different vision of northern France than much of the Normandy stuff if you've already been there. Saint-Malo is a very different feel because, like Bayeux, it escaped a lot of the damage that, say, Caen or Saint-Lô or some of these other cities took. It took damage, but it still has this wonderful old feel to it, right on the water. It's right on, I guess that would be a bay separating it from its kind of twin town, Dinan. And it's just a lovely, lovely setting, and really one of the prettiest towns in northern France. So it'll be a really, really great base for us to operate from, and it'll just feel different than anything that we will have seen in Normandy.
Well, and one thing that's so great about both Bordeaux and Saint-Malo is that we're actually there for about 2 days or 2 nights. So what beautiful cities for you after your evening lecture, because if you've traveled with us
Yeah.
on these cruises, you know that every night you're going to have a lecture from one of the historians. But then you can actually just get off the ship and walk into the old town and really explore on your own, see these beautiful old French towns. And I'm so excited, well, about all of the ports, but especially St. Malo, for 2 reasons. One, Mont Saint Michel. Talk about the UNESCO
Yes.
World Heritage Site, just absolutely gorgeous. It's always a highlight for our travelers when they get to go there. And being based in St. Malo, it's only about a 30-minute drive. So this is so wonderful. It's right in your backyard. But then also, for those that are interested in more journalism, Lee Miller. Can we talk about her for a second in St. Malo, either one of you?
Yeah. I mean, Lee Miller basically thinks the fighting is over, and then she gets there and finds out quite differently. Lee Miller had been a famous, photographer, fashion model, so on and so forth. She's now become really one of the leading war correspondents, and basically, just sort of operating in a male-dominated world where they're trying to, the authorities are often trying to keep her out of combat. And yet she's really had become one of the most cutting-edge correspondents at that point. She and later on Maggie Higgins too. But
And
um,
Martha Gellhorn.
and Martha Gellhorn, exactly, who's sort of competing
Yeah.
with her soon-to-be ex-husband
Yeah.
Ernest Hemingway. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, great point. Yeah, so she goes to Saint-Malo, and she's really on site with the 83rd Infantry Division. You get the better part of 3 regiments that are going to be involved there. And so she's following some of this urban combat, this kind of street to street fighting. She's very angry about it in the sense of some of the destruction that's happening to Saint-Malo. She loves France, knows it very, very well. And yeah, so I think that's interesting. Now, that's not where the famous bathtub picture is taken.
I was going to ask
Right.
you about that. Yeah, it is her who is the one that gets the picture of her taking a bath in Hitler's bathtub, right?
in
Yeah,
Hitler's bathtub, and I think that's in
Yeah.
Munich, if I'm not
in
Yeah.
mistaken.
Munich. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
You
right
can
after
find that.
she visited Dachau concentration camp. You know,
Yeah.
she took she was wearing the boots and then she smeared the mud from the camp into the rug, you know, the bath rug. And yeah, the very famous photo of her from
I mean,
apartment.
this is one of the things that I love about studying. I mean, not that we don't have badasses in our own day, but I mean, Lee Miller, I mean, Canham, I mean, these people
Yeah.
are badasses, and they're living in a time where they're, you know, they have to be feeling this tremendous sense of frustration, this tremendous sense of just wanting to get this war over with, and the Normandy campaign slowing down more than anybody had expected it to do. And you know, it's not that, I mean, everybody's feeling frustration, but the way that these people choose to vent that frustration, it's just awesome. I mean, it's just incredible. So, you know, being able to look at the big picture as we will, but being also able to look at the people like Lee Miller, like Jean Moulin, like Martha Gellhorn, all of these people, you know, who just led extraordinary lives. Some of them may be destined for extraordinary lives, but most of them just kind of meeting the moment, as Jean Moulin will, and doing the right thing when it was called upon him to do that. So it's just another one of these great things. It's one thing to read about these things. It's another thing to be standing in the place where it happened.
Well, and talking about standing in the places of where it happened, I mean, that's the beauty of this travel, the travel department. You know, you can read about things, you can write about things, watch the movies, but until you're standing there, it's unbelievable when it just clicks with you. And going back to Lorient, you know, when I told our guides that we were going to definitely include the submarine bases, you talk about World War II nerding out. You know, they just got so excited. You know, so I'm excited to have some of these new ports, new locations to bring our guests. And speaking of that port, Mike, I got to mention the wonderful historian that you introduced us to, Jonathan Boff. He'll be joining us there.
Yeah.
Jonathan Boff has done our Sin cruise, gone to Normandy with us. He does all of our Churchill London pre-tour for our Easy Company tour. He always does a lecture about Churchill. And I don't go to London now without seeing Professor Bob.
Yeah,
So
neither
thank
do
you,
I.
Mike. Thank you for that introduction.
Yeah, Jonathan's a really fascinating guy, and you'll really enjoy talking to him. He has a background in international finance. He's working on a book right now on the history of money in wartime, which is really fascinating. And I think everyone will really enjoy getting to know him and learning from him and getting to see a different perspective on this, what it looks like from the British side, what it looks like from this grand strategic financial instrument side, which is not one that we often think about. But of course, if there's no money, there's no way to prosecute a war. And those of you who will be with him, I think I can say this, Sarah, of all the historians that you are associated with, he is at least, if not the best, the most enthusiastic dancer among us. So if you can get him out on the dance floor. But no, Jonathan's one of my closest friends, and I'm delighted that I was able to introduce the two of you, and that Jonathan has become such a part of this, because he's a brilliant guy, and his brain is always thinking two levels above, and I think everyone will really enjoy talking to him.
I know they will. And two other historians, one that's going to join us in Brest and the other one who's joining us in St. Malo, Saul David and James Holland. Saul and James, also good friends to the museum and the travel department. But John, you and James, and you, Mike, I mean, all of you are just,
Yep.
I mean, he's everybody's
Yep.
best friend, you know?
He is.
He is. That's the
He's
kind of
my
guy he
best
is.
friend.
Absolutely. He's just a good guy. And he's
Yeah.
brilliant, by the way.
Yeah.
He's a wonderful writer, wonderful talker, and he's just a nice person and extremely knowledgeable about the ground. He loves walking the ground. He's Jim Holland and I have gotten to be very good buddies over the years, co-hosting a podcast, all this good stuff. So I'll tell you, in terms of immersing in the operational details of a battle, understanding the human dimensions of it, James Holland can really speak to that. Saul David, I think, has just this incredible intuition about historical events. He just thinks the things that the rest of us don't, I think, on some level, and also super good guy. Just these are just enjoyable people to be around. It's one of many reasons why I love doing this. Just nice people, and I always learn things from them. It's a fun deal.
It is. And
Yeah.
it's always fun to see you and James together. And what was your podcast? What's your podcast called, John?
The one that James and I do, we have
Yes.
ways of Talk USA. Yes, we have
Yes.
ways USA. Mhm.
Well,
It's fun.
and Mike, go ahead and introduce who was that in the background? Because everybody's going to want to know who that beautiful puppy is.
That's Rosie, who I think has managed to disappear for a minute. I tried to give her a Kong to calm her down, but she gets very excited about this time of night. She's had her midday nap and she's ready to go.
She's
But
excited
yeah,
about these tours too. Yeah.
sorry.
Yes.
Rosie's excited about these tours too.
Rosie, yeah, she'd be great. She'd eat everything off of the buffet. There'd be no food left. Yeah, yeah. Oh, is she settling down behind me? She is. She is.
All right, now
Nope, now
let's
she's
talk
getting up.
about Normandy. As I mentioned earlier on this call, actually the three of us are all going to be better next week in Paris, and then we'll be going to Normandy. Hello, Rosie. She can come along as well. We Normandy is really kind of just, you know, the bread and butter of our travel department. You know, everybody, all Americans want to go see Normandy. They should see Normandy. Both of you have been there with the museum multiple times. And it's always great to be there, you know, even when it's an off anniversary year, but to be there on June 6th. So who wants to kind of start talking about the significance of Normandy and why it's so great to go there?
Well, where to begin? All right. Sarah, fair warning, you may never get me to shut up. So both of you tell me to shut up. But Normandy is like a second home for me on some level. I don't know why. I think it's so incredibly compelling on many levels from an American standpoint. I think on some levels it's the beginning of a new superpower America in a way, and certainly the US beginning to kind of take over the load of at least the ground combat operations in the European theater. It's the beginning of that on many levels. It's not just the invasion, although obviously we go deep into that. But you kind of see the larger context of Normandy, like the architecture, the culture. You really get a feel for that, I think, in some of these day trips that we take. And of course, our battlefield historians are just absolutely top notch. You know, in many cases, they're from there. They know it. They have family ties and roots that go back to that era, and I think that's quite compelling. I mean, for me, of course, there's many sites in Normandy that are special, but in terms of the tour, of course, we will be going to San Mariglis, to Utah Beach, Lafayette, which is well, it's certainly one of my favorite sites. And that's where I think from a kind of an American point of view, that's one of the key moments of the entire Battle of Normandy. We go to Pointe du Hoc, we go to Omaha Beach, we go, of course, to all the landing beaches. Which Juno Beach is another one of my favorites, the Canadian beach. I think there's so much to delve into there. So the bottom line, of course, we have these day trips where we go into these various sites, and there's so many directions we can take it, so many human stories that we bring to light, and it's just I mean, I don't know, it's just amazing. Mike,
Well,
I'm
Mike,
sure.
what's your favorite place in Normandy?
I'm just in love with the town of Bayeux. And
Yeah.
as an historian of France, I mean, I agree. As an American, I agree with absolutely everything John said. I get goosebumps every time I think about going to Normandy, no matter how many times that I've been there. And I remember a moment when I walked into the cemetery with Air Force Academy cadets when I was teaching there. And just as we walked into this kind of center of the cemetery, the carillon started playing God Bless America, and I turned back and all six people were just tears coming down their eyes. So it is just an amazing, I'm getting goosebumps right now just remembering that moment. But the French historian in me really loves spending time in Bayeux. It's the place where de Gaulle will show up. The Americans and British expected him to give a quick speech and then leave. That's not what he does. He very much establishes that Bayeux is liberated. It is French. It is now free France. It is now sovereign France. It's also the place we won't get to see the tapestry, but it's the place that has the tapestry about the Great Battle of Hastings and William the Conqueror in 1066. And fortunately, it survived the war. So it is just this absolute treasure of a town. And that's the place. If I hit the lottery tomorrow for a lot of money, I think that's likely where you would find me.
Mike, I actually agree with you 100%. If I also win the lottery, I'm going to purchase a home or a hotel or something in Bayou and move
Yeah.
there permanently with all of our best French best friends. And
Yeah,
One thing I want to mention is one site that we are going to, because very rarely do we actually include this on cruises, but we're going to include Falaise Gap. This is going to
great.
be one of the excursions. Can one of you talk to for just a moment about Falaise Gap? Because all of my years of going to Normandy, it's not always on the itinerary. It's on just our mainly our D-Day flagship program. But I love going to Falaise Gap. It's beautiful. It's amazing. But talk about for a moment about the content.
Yeah, so Falaise Gap is often thought of as like the capstone, the end point of the Battle of Normandy, and the fighting there happens like about the midpoint of third week of August, when the Germans, the survivors, are desperately trying to escape. They've had an abortive campaign or an attack at a place called Mortagne, which also is on our visit list as one place, and so they have met near disaster there, and the remnants of German military forces in Normandy are trying to flee east. Well, there's a tendency to kind of pocket in that Falaise Gap because of some of the high ground around there, the road net, so on and so forth. What I like about it, visiting it, it's one of these places where you get on the ground and you kind of take one look around, you see it, and you understand it immediately why that ends up as what it is. And it's very
Yeah.
easy to kind of drink that in, don't you think?
I 100% agree. It's also quite beautiful, which
Mm.
so you sort of have to force your mind's eye. You're absolutely right. You can see from where you are. And the other thing about it that I like is the French have done a really good job, I think, of memorializing it in the last couple of years of putting things in to help you see it a little bit better. But it's one of those places you look at, much like Omaha Beach, where it takes you a second to think this beautiful place was the scene of such unbelievable violence. But I agree with you 100%, John. It is laid out in a way that it's not difficult, maybe with a little bit of help from someone who's been there before, to sort of point out what's going on, why this piece of ground is so important, and why once that Falaise pocket is closed, it opens up the approach to Paris and sets up that next phase of this campaign.
So before we leave Normandy, though, I do want to mention, because none of us have said it yet, but we will be going to the Normandy American Cemetery on June 6th, and it's always such a wonderful and moving moment. We'll have a wreath laying or have roses, and you just have that opportunity to walk along the graves of those who did make the ultimate sacrifice. To me, that is really the crowning moment of being in Normandy. It's just remembering and honoring those men that are buried there. And also, we will be able to go to the Brittany American Cemetery, one of the American cemeteries I've never visited, actually. Have either one of you ever been to the one in Brittany? Mm-mm.
No.
No,
No?
no.
Well, great. It'll be a first time for all of us. And this is really the only, I think, second time that we've ever even had it on an itinerary before. So I'm very excited about that as well. Now, when we are in Normandy, when we're docked there, we will have one more featured guest, not historian, join us. James Matteo, who played Frank Perconti in the Band of Brothers miniseries, he will be joining us. To me, sometimes people will say, "Why are you bringing an actor from a show 25 years ago?" And I just always say, wait until you meet them. They are
Yeah,
really
yeah.
kind of the icing on the cake. As young men got this role, and for now over 25 years they have dedicated their lives to continue to honor the men of Easy Company, but not just Easy Company, actually all of our greatest generation. John, I know you've traveled with some of them before. I think Mike, you were with Jim for the 75th,
Yep,
actually.
I
It's so
was. I
neat
was.
to
Yeah,
listen to them,
he's
maybe watch an
a great guy.
episode.
Yeah.
I mean, anything you want to say about Band of Brothers and how I cannot believe it really is going to be 25 years next year of the miniseries?
It is hard to believe. I know. Yeah, I mean, James Matteo is he's the kind of guy you'll meet him and it's like you've known him forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just a very, very
Yes.
open and warm person. He's a terrific actor, by the way. I mean, I think his portrayal of Perconte was spot on. He got the opportunity to know him a little bit. I think that helped with
Mhm.
the role, that James has had a lot of great roles ever since. But I think what's neat about that, and the other Band of Brothers actors who I've met with and worked with, is that they've learned a lot of this history as time goes on. Like you said, Sarah, it's been 25 years since they did this. They're not just kids anymore. They have the maturation, I think, to understand maybe some of the larger sweep of what it all meant. and the people they portray, and how that really is near and dear to them, and it matters to them. So I think they bring something of that personal base point. And I know that James does, and I know that it's interesting for me. I learned from them too. Little elements
Hmm.
of people they portrayed that I didn't know, a little piece of history. Or it's also kind of interesting to hear what it was like, to prepare and to film Band of Brothers, and also too to get a sense of what it means in our culture.
Yep.
How impactful Band of Brothers has been is just absolutely kind of earth-shattering in a way. So, and humbling, because in many cases, I mean, of course, people know them way better than they're going to know me. So you have to approach this with some level of humility.
Yeah. One of the evenings we will have sort of a Hollywood versus history, which we've done before. It's really neat. We're watching pieces of clips. Of course, we'll do something from either episode 2 or 3, which are based in Normandy. But there's other great films. We know we've mentioned Saving Private Ryan. There's The Longest Day. There's all these films that will be available to watch on the cruise if you want to after dinner and the lectures and cocktails. You can go back to your cabin and watch a World War II film just to, finish off the day. Now, we end up ending in Amsterdam. This is where we're going to disembark. We are actually going to offer 2 post tours. One will be continuing on that Band of Brothers story. So it'll be Operation Market Garden all the way to Berchtesgaden, covering going from Eindhoven, the Netherlands, into Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany, visiting Dachau concentration camp, and of course, going into Zelensee, Austria, and visiting the Hitler's Eagle's Nest. But we will also be offering a 3-night post tour in Amsterdam featuring Dr. Alexandra Ritchie, another one of our very good friends. So some of our new sites that we are including on this is visiting Westerbork Transit Camp, which is right outside of Amsterdam. We will go into Haarlem. We'll visit the hiding place, which is where a Protestant family of the Dutch resistance hid Jewish families, helping them escape, out of Nazi occupation. But the entire post tour it's German occupation, it's the Jewish experience, and it's the Dutch resistance. So you could start off with French resistance and end with Dutch resistance. Or of course you can end with our easy company tour, Operation Market Garden to Berchtesgaden. Now, guys, real quick, I just want to, tell me about something, each one of you, tell me something that you love about traveling with the National World War II Museum. Anything and everything. What is something that sets us apart?
It's Sarah's not paying me to do this, but I mean, it's Sarah and her team. It's Darcy, it's Ellie, it's and Naomi, it's Richard. I mean, it's as you mentioned, it's Pierre Samuel, it's Sylvain. I mean, it is just such a fabulous, fabulous team to travel with and to work with. And you guys, it's a very serious subject, and it's something that we have to have very serious discussions about. But we also get to see beautiful things, and you guys organize it so incredibly well that the focus is on the learning, and the focus is on the experience, and the focus is not on dealing with the day-to-day things that can be difficult when you're traveling. So you honestly did not pay me extra to say this, but I think I would list that as my number one. The hotels are great, the food is great, the bus drivers are great, but it's you guys and the team that make this. It's one of the main reasons why I keep signing up for these things every time you say, "Hey, Mike, I've got a great idea for you."
Well, thank you,
Exactly,
Mike.
Mike, because
Thank you.
we've experienced that. That's right. Me
Yeah,
too. And so what
yeah.
I would say is the World War II Museum hits the sweet spot of everything in the sense of maximizing each individual skill set of what they bring to the table. Sarah, Darcy, Ellie, everything about organizing these tours, making sure that they're a very special experience for folks who sign up for it. Basically the luxury oriented travel, who wouldn't like that? I mean, the
It's not so
cruise
bad. Yeah.
it's a tough duty, right, Mike? I mean, it's I mean, so I mean that those kind of accommodations, those kind of meals, like you said, the bus drivers know what they're doing, so obviously that takes some care to hire these folks. The battlefield historians bring an element of it that you and I can't, in the sense that they
Yeah,
live there. They in some cases I
yeah,
mentioned, they have a family history there that they know it in a way that I can't speak to, but maybe I could speak to it maybe in the sense of from an author standpoint and a little bit more of an academic standpoint too, but also on the human and emotional level. So coming on this tour, you're getting all these different levels of expertise, and then the tour managers, you mentioned Richard and Naomi, of course, there's many others who make sure things go as smoothly as possible because stuff goes
yeah.
wrong in life, and they understand how to deal with it and to make sure that that's a smooth experience for you, because traveling can be really stressful. So
A team
so
effort, and
it
yeah,
is.
sorry, John. Yeah, you
It is.
guys are the leaders of the team, and I traveled with
Yep.
you when we were still dealing with COVID, and that went incredibly smoothly. So, yeah, it's a team effort, and I just love the way that we've all worked as a team, like John said. I mean, Pierre Samuel and Sylvain in France, and I mean it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a great, really enjoyable experience.
Thank you
Fun.
both. That means a lot coming from both of you, but it's true. It's what we want for the guests is, we want you to sign up. Our sales team is going to take care of you from the beginning up until the day you depart. Once you depart, once you land in Europe, you know that you're in good hands. We have the logistical team to take care of you and help you along the way. There's a lot of things that happen wrong behind closed doors, but I don't want you to ever see that. That's what we're there for, to take care of these things for you. The expert battlefield guides, they're the top in their field, and we just couldn't do it without them. But of course, our historians, the ones that everybody wants to pay to hear from. So I think we're a great team, and I just adore both of you and appreciate you saying that. I like you said, I'm not paying you extra, but it is recorded and I will remember this forever. So thank you, gentlemen.
And
Now,
it'll be
before I
out there
let
forever.
everybody
So great.
go, I do want to say one thing about the ship. So this is actually, the guys have just mentioned how, it's always top level accommodations. And that's the case for this trip as well. In Bordeaux, if you want to stay additional nights, we are going to be staying at the Intercontinental Bordeaux. It's beautiful, perfect location. If you want to do the post tour or stay extra days in Amsterdam, again, we're going to be using the Intercontinental Amstel. Both are 5-star properties. But our cruise, so we are on Swan Hellenic, SH Diana. It is a boutique ship. We'll have about 175 people. That's actually very, very small when you think about it. It has several restaurants. It has the club lounge that can hold everybody. So that's where we will have those evening lectures. Grab you a cocktail, come and join us in the lounge, and listen to our historians. There is the poolside grill. There's of course the gym. There's a spa for those that are wanting to take a break from touring and they want to just enjoy the facilities. Many of the cabins has balconies or fireplaces. It's just a beautiful small boutique ship. It's right in line with the other, brands that we do charter, which is also another thing. It's a charter cruise. So the only people that are going to be on there are the people that are traveling with the National WWII Museum. You're all kind of trapped on a ship together. So you're going to run into that historian in the bar or in the restaurant. So you get to ask them your questions. But you also get to meet like-minded people. Everyone's there for the same reason, and that's to learn more about World War II and to remember that greatest generation. 80 now that'll be 83 years later since the D-Day landings, but over 80 years, and we're still remembering. And I think that's really, really great. But guys, do you have any other last minute or last thoughts you want to share? Or I think you did pretty good. I don't know how you'll top that last comment you made.
I mean, this is the
No,
best. This is the gold standard. Sign
yeah,
up for it. You're going to have a blast. I mean, I don't know what more to tell you. You're really going to enjoy it. You just will.
yeah, it'll be fabulous. And like I said, you'll meet people you'll learn from, and I don't know that there's anything better than that.
Yep.
Well, thank you both. Let me just list all of the historians one more time. So, and the dates. So this cruise, it is on the SH Diana. It's a Swan Hellenic. It's the boutique ship. Embarkation in Bordeaux is on May 30th, 2027. Disembarkation June 8th in Amsterdam. Along the way, you will be able to have this wonderful opportunity to travel with several historians, including Michael Neiberg, Jonathan Boff, Saul David, James Holland, John McManus, one of our own National WWII Museum's Jenny Craig Institute for the Study of War and Democracy, John Curatola, and of course, the Band of Brothers actor, James Matteo. In Amsterdam, you get to be with Dr. Alexandra Ritchie, or you can continue on with the Band of Brothers story on our Easy Company tour. So thank you everybody for listening and joining us. If you're interested, please do call the museum. Our number is 504-528-1944, extension 257, or you can go to our website and check out the beautiful brochure and learn more about this trip. John, Mike, thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you in Paris next week.
You in Paris.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I
Bye.
really appreciate it.